The Hopper family's all about fun and laughter. 3 kids, our first child, Will, Ryley, and then Colby. Ryley is what we would call the wild child for sure. Always carefree, always loving, blonde locks, big blue eyes.
Just no fear. He used to typically always wear the same, outfit when he was little. It was this Batman tank and a cape, and he was good to go.
Ryley was a rising sophomore at University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
Life is going on, the summer's rolling about.
I was always doing something, having fun. I left to go to the pool and hang out with the boys again.
We were saying goodbye that afternoon, and I looked at Ryley and I said, "No backflips." That's my version of "I love you."
So I really don't remember much of the day. Like I said, I was 6'3", 215 pounds, running and jumping into the pool. It's shallow and I dove in. It's a lot of force.
He came up kind of thrashing around, and so we definitely thought he was joking. And then I looked back over, and he was just at the bottom of the pool. I've been a lifeguard for 5 years. I had never saved anybody's life before this point. So I pulled him up, and that's when I noticed that, his head was leaned back, his lips were blue, and that's when I started to do CPR.
We were notified by 911 it was a possible drowning. I grabbed the EMS gear that we carry, went to the pool, started taking vitals and looking for a pulse. Had none. We had a full working code blue, and I began CPR immediately.
Hey, what do we got? Let me get the compression.
Where you at?
No shock advised.
No shock advised.
Guys, I got a fairly obvious deformity on the back of his C-spine, okay? I'm pretty sure we got a neck injury here.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
When we found out that it was in fact from a spinal injury, that moved it from a regular code to what we call a trauma code. So we decided to transport him to Duke University Hospital because that was the best place for him.
He's posturing in the uppers, he's decorticating, and nothing in the lowers.
By the time Ryley gets here, he was having trouble breathing. It's pretty incredible the number of teams that assemble for these traumas.
Airway is not intact. There are bilateral breath sounds. Let's prepare succinylcholine and etomidate for intubation.
The ED team quickly moved to secure his airway, meaning intubate him. Can we please get a CT of his head, C-spine, T and L? Soon after the imaging was done, it was pretty obvious he'd have a cervical spine injury, kind of in the middle part of his neck, that was causing him to not be able to move his legs.
Ryley's injury specifically involved a C6 vertebra. His neck was not really attached to his skull. He had a significant amount of problems breathing. We cannot just rush him into surgery. We have to make sure that we first stabilize him.
Knew his parents had just arrived. They were waiting to know what happened.
We were brought into a room, and a social worker came in.
As soon as one of them are able to step away, they'll come give you an update, okay?
These conversations are never easy. It's tough on all of us.
We were treated with, utmost respect and kindness.
And then a doctor came in. We learned that he had a near drowning. He had cardiac arrest. He had broken his neck, and that's... It is the worst day of my life.
Ryley was brought from the emergency department straight to the neuro ICU because we can best manage his condition here.
So he was under the hypothermia protocol. It chills the blood. It kind of puts the brain in a quieter state. The neurosurgeons and the neurocritical care team had a Lycox inserted where they drill a hole in the skull to monitor the brain pressures, oxygenation.
It was a rule. There was only one person back there at a time. And
We didn't want to be separated. Our nurse, John, was like, "You know what, you both need to be in here." That just meant so much. And we really made it our home.
They were at the bedside 24/7. They never left.
We started to build relationships with people there. I heard the term, "We're going to take the very best care of your boy," 100 times. And that felt good.
We kept fighting a battle with his lungs to where he would get a little bit better and then he would get worse.
And that's when the infectious disease folks got involved.
We take a lot of pride in kind of combing through all of the details, the nitty-gritty. One of the things we do is go through the medication. And our team had kind of figured out the carrier fluid in propofol can have a low cross-reactivity between soybean oil and peanut oil. Ryley had a peanut allergy.
Once we were able to change from propofol to other sedatives,
he really seemed to turn around.
When you've got a bunch of smart people, like the people at Duke, they can look at things and figure it out, and they figured it out.
At the beginning, the ventilator is doing all the work for Ryley. I explained to Tim, the game plan's gonna be to wake up Ryley.
The biggest worry I had was whether he was gonna come back, know who we are.
when we first started to wean off the sedating medications, Ryley began to make small movements and flicker his eyes.
Hi, it's Mom. We're all right here.
Come on, buddy. Open your eyes.
We said, Ryley, can you hear us? And he just moved his head a little bit. You see him trying to open up his eyes.
Come on, buddy. There they are.
It's just baby blues.
I just remembered like being surrounded by a family. You know, I just realized like can't move my arms really. I'm not able to speak.
It was very important when he woke up and he had the tube in his mouth that we give him a way to communicate with his family. He couldn't move his fingers to point at things or to write, so we had to get creative, and we ended up getting an alphabet board from speech therapy, taping a laser to a pair of glasses. He could point to the letters that he wanted to speak into sentences.
I was so fast with it, people couldn't keep up. That was an amazing tool.
It was an absolute roller coaster ride of joy, sadness, and everything in between. The surgery got postponed multiple times.
He developed several bouts of pneumonia. We had to wait for some of the infection to clear before we brought him into the operating room.
On his way to surgery, we noticed before it was time for him to go, Ryley's oxygen saturation had gotten critically low. I was bagging him at the bedside to try to bring his sats up. We called for the emergent airway team to come in and fiber optically intubate him at the bedside and stabilized him.
There was close to 12 or 14 different clinicians in the room. They just stood up for him, and it was a sight to watch. I just coined the term the watchdogs of Rydog. They were watching over Ryley.
I had grown very close to Ryley and very protective over him. He was almost like my little brother. I have a brother that was about the same age, and I treated him as such. I walked him down to the doors of the operating room myself.
These surgeries are challenging because from the injury, usually there's a lot of swelling and there's a lot of bruising in the neck. Our goal of the surgery was really to remove that fractured and injured vertebra and reconstruct that vertebra with a cage. The anesthesia team were excellent in making sure that his blood pressure and his lungs were good for the surgery. I was quite pleased with how everybody performed. We didn't have any problems with the surgery. He did great.
Everyone was watching over me. Just people showing a lot of love.
We would frequently give patients who are intubated or sedated like Ryley swabs of water in their mouth because they feel dehydrated and dry. Ryley wanted something else to drink. When we got the Gatorade swabs and swabbed his mouth, Kim was at the side of the bed and tears started rolling down her face.
It was a treat for Ryley to just get something else in there. We can't say enough about the nurses. They were just unbelievable.
Some of the connections that you make with families and some of the things that are most important to them, you definitely don't realize at the time.
Ryley hadn't been outside since the accident.
We just decided, let's get him outside. We mobilized the troops and nurses, respiratory therapists, and we were able to give him hope by taking him outside.
Feel the heat, brother?
Everybody was in their role, trying to make sure everything was safe.
It's really good for me. Be out in the sun. They're on top of it. It's a dream team.
It was time for him to move on. We needed to get him into a rehab hospital. The Shepherd Center in Atlanta.
Being able to provide the family and the patient as a whole of care that can decrease their stress or pain or sadness, that's what we're here to do.
1, 2, 3.
I was excited and happy for him to move on to the next phase of his journey.
After leaving Duke, I moved on to using the power chair with rather than the sit and puff, using my hand. Now I'm pushing myself around in this manual chair. Started feeding myself a little bit. I'm learning to brush my teeth on my own. I think the next step right now is getting fine motor. This is the chapter we're on. There's good things to come.
We don't know where he'll be in 6 months or a year. So yeah, we've got a long road ahead of us. But, you know, I have the greatest gift. He's alive. Thankfully, Connor did know CPR and was able to initiate that.
I was one person on this team of people. If the EMS and firemen didn't get there on time, then, you know, it would have been a lot worse. I think it was a lot of people that helped, and especially all the people at Duke, too.
I think where you start, the care you get in that really fragile time in the beginning, you know, it sets you up for success in the future. With a team like that, they set me up right. I was in good hands.
Ryley suffered a serious spinal cord injury, and in most parts of the world, a lot of patients will not make it through. The fact that he was able to be discharged and now is at home and is able to regain some function is significant. I view that as a victory and also, to some extent, a miracle. Ryley's still very young. My vision for him is to go full force and try to achieve his goals. Not focus on what life used to be like, but focus on how great he can still make his life.